Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a fantasy thriller film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a decrepit mobile theater touring around London. The mobile theater is administered by Dr. Parnassus, a sage powerful enough to externalize someone's deepest desire into reality through imagination. His theater troupe includes his teen daughter Valentina, stout assistant Percy, and Barker Anton. The troupe settles near a pub, and Anton commences the show by introducing Parnassus first, and then their central attraction, a mirror portal to dreamland called Imaginarium, fueled by Parnassus's potent mind. Anyone who enters the Imaginarium can witness their dreams up close. Moreover, they can also change their appearance based on personal interest. While the troupe performs on stage, 4 drunk clubbers exit the club, and one of the drunkards decides to ruin the show with his aggressive behavior. He pushes Anton and Percy off the stage, and maliciously catcalls Valentina due to her distinct features. Valentina retreats into the Imaginarium to escape from the drunkard, but he still follows her, and is surprised to arrive in a forest backdrop behind a mirror. Regardless, he continues pursuing Valentina, but Valentina retaliates, jabbing his body the moment he approaches her. Valentina happily exits the Imaginarium after giving the drunkard what he deserved, leaving him to encounter more than just imaginations. The moment Valentina disappears, the Imaginarium shifts according to the drunkard's deepest desire, a place with an infinite source of liquors. After a weird creature drops him from the sky onto a large thumbtack, the drunkard arrives in a desert. The Imaginarium doesn't only give imagination, but also a test of humanity. The test gives 2 paths to choose from, to self-fulfillment and enlightenment, and to the bliss of ignorance. Parnassus's voice booms from the sky, challenging the drunkard to trek the mountain to attain fulfillment. But Parnassus's adversary, Nick, the personified devil, appears at a club building to distract and tempt the drunkard to go astray from the right path and into his dangerous and ignorant route. The drunkard obviously chooses the club because he wants instant gratification over having to endure first before gaining fulfillment. After the drunkard enters the club, the building explodes. Therefore, it implies that Nick wins and Parnassus loses another soul to the devil. Parnassus jolts back to reality and closes up the portal. Momentarily, cops arrive to intervene in the turmoil between the troupe and the clubbers, who accuse Valentina of abducting the drunkard. An officer steps in to investigate and searches for the drunkard on the small stage, but he can't find him anywhere. Next, the troupe performs at a fair, where a kid sneaks into the mirror. Anton enters the mirror this time to retrieve the kid before his parents suspect them of abduction. The moment Anton enters, he's astounded when witnessing Parnassus's mind externalizing the kid's dreamland into reality, where everything is a massive, colorful gameplay. Parnassus then appears in the form of a hot air balloon to dispel the kid, but the kid only shoots him down to shut him up. Anton goes back on stage to wake up Parnassus, so the kid can return and reunite with his worried parents. The show ends, and the troupe settles down for the night. At the backstage, Valentina secretly browses a family magazine, yearning to build and have a normal family, but she knows it's impossible to achieve this dream at the moment. Meanwhile, Percy overhears Nick and Parnassus' discussion about an old wager that involves Valentina. When Nick finally leaves, Percy approaches Parnassus to remind him to confess the truth to Valentina before it's too late. Soon, the troupe departs from the fair and travels to a remote place. On the way, Anton and Valentina chatter on the roof about escaping together, but Valentina shows her bell anklet, symbolizing that she's still a minor. Nevertheless, Valentina remains hopeful because she'll turn 16 in 3 days' time. Afterward, Valentina visits her drunk father in his bedroom, who is busy reading cards. Parnassus immediately stops his card reading upon seeing Valentina and grabs the chance to tell her something about his past. It turns out, many centuries ago, Parnassus was a virgin monk living among other monks in a sanctuary built on a snowy mountain. Their primary purpose in life was to tell the eternal story continuously to keep the world from vanishing into non-existence. However, Nick, the personified devil, perceived their purpose as nonsense. Therefore, he visited the sanctuary to debunk the monks' dumb beliefs. Nick suctioned all of the monks' juicy lips first, except for Parnassus, to attest that the world's existence didn't depend on their stories. Just then, a bird messenger from a different place appeared and dropped its shit onto Nick as an insult, and Parnassus burst into laughter due to Nick's gross look. Parnassus then confidently claimed the world still existed because there were more people out there in the universe or dimension who never stopped telling stories. Afterward, Nick offered a bet. The first one to accumulate 12 disciples would be the winner. At this moment, Parnassus wagered with the devil for the first time. Nick focused his argument around the necessities of danger, fear, and the bliss of ignorance in life, whereas Parnassus centered on the power of imagination to transform lives and convert his disciples. In the end, Parnassus won the hard battle and received immortality as the prize. However, Parnassus' victory was only a trick played by Nick. Nick allowed Parnassus to win because he knew people underwent change throughout time, until nobody would listen to his stories anymore. Therefore, Parnassus' immortality became useless as time passed, since no one listened to him anymore. Unfortunately, Parnassus' story ends midway because the mobile theater unexpectedly stops on the bridge. Valentina wishes for him to continue, but Parnassus orders her to inspect what's going on. Valentina then leaves Parnassus alone, who flips the remaining card to reveal an image of a hanged man. Meanwhile, Valentina joins Anton and Percy on the roof. Anton says he saw a shadow on the water when the lightning flashed earlier. The lightning soon flashes 3 times, and they finally conclude the shadow is a person hanging under the bridge. The trio instantly work together to rescue the hanging person. Anton rappels off the bridge and sees a man with a red stamp mark on his forehead. Just then, rain crashes down as Anton returns to the surface with the stranger. Parnassus appears on the roof, telling them to leave the stranger alone. However, Valentina wants to save the stranger, and so Anton thumps onto the stranger's chest to resuscitate him. The stranger shortly coughs up and spits out a pipe, but subsequently collapses due to shock. The next day, the stranger wakes up confused, wondering where he is or what's happening. Percy then approaches him to ask for his name, and then he claims to have forgotten everything after suffering from a concussion. Suddenly, Parnassus leaves the mobile theater, and Anton briefs him about the slab with Russian inscriptions they found from the stranger last night. Parnassus then brings out the card and compares it to the stranger, assuming he's sent by Nick for a new bet. Parnassus cheerfully re-enters the mobile because there's new hope to retrieve Valentina from Nick. At night, the troupe prepares outside a convenience store, and Valentina tasks the stranger to sell tickets. Unfortunately, the troupe wants to stop the show because Parnassus is too drunk to work, but he still insists on proceeding with the performance. Miraculously, the stranger leads a group of spectators to the stage and then encourages the troupe to start the show. However, Parnassus suddenly collapses in front of them, causing the spectators to demand refunds. However, the stranger fabricates a sad story about Valentina being sick, so they need money to fund her medication. The spectators believe him and even pay for more tickets after Valentina offers them a promo. When the show ends, Valentina cheers for the money they earned that night. But Anton feels jealous because Valentina is showing interest in the stranger. He even sarcastically comments that the stranger might be her ticket out of the theater. Meanwhile, Nick visits Parnassus to clarify that the stranger is not his pawn and that he doesn't trust him at all. Moreover, Nick reveals the stranger's name is Tony, a philanthropist who runs a charity organization. Afterward, Nick offers a new wager to Parnassus. The first one, to win 5 souls before Valentina's 16th birthday ends, gets to own her forever. Therefore, they only have 2 days to complete the task. The next day, the troupe gets to buy more food, thanks to Tony's persuasive skills. Next, Valentina throws a chicken to Tony for him to pluck its feathers. While Tony cleans the chicken, he finds a newspaper with his photograph on the headline, "Missing Disgraced Head of Children's Charity." Meanwhile, Parnassus convinces himself that Tony was sent to them for a reason, and so he approaches Tony, who quickly dumps the newspaper near the bonfire and places a weird helmet on his head. Parnassus explains to Tony that the helmet helps him read others' minds. Then he acts like he picked something up, when he's simply relaying to everyone what he learned from Nick last night. Meanwhile, Tony pretends to remember his real name, Tony, through Parnassus's power, just so they won't question him about his real identity. Afterward, Tony recognizes his pipe from Anton, who's fumbling with it near the mobile theater. Tony then retrieves the pipe, which causes Anton to be wary of Tony, because he remembers a simple pipe, but not his memories. At night, Anton overhears Parnassus and Percy's plot to use Tony to win the 5 souls. During the show, their scheme compels Anton to be more competitive against Tony, just to win Parnassus recognition. Meanwhile, Valentina finds her father sober for the first time. When Tony manages to find a customer, Anton steals her and forces her to enter the Imaginarium. Anton's action results in the show falling into disaster as the club bouncers start to intervene between their troupe and the customer's protesting friend. The chaos provokes Percy to shoot fireworks straight from a cannon as they escape from the club. The troupe eventually arrives in an isolated place, and Valentina and Percy are angry at Anton for his recklessness, which cost them their work and home. Anton separates himself to repent for his mistake earlier. However, Tony joins him in his isolation to ask about Parnassus and the mirror. Anton explains that Parnassus's mind gives power to the mirror to produce breathtaking imagination. Tony remains doubtful about Anton's explanation, but Anton persuades him that Parnassus only intends to inspire the world. Meanwhile, Parnassus reveals to Valentina her birth story while in his bedroom. Parnassus regained his mortality to date the beautiful woman he loved. Unfortunately, their love story included a catch that was too painful to escape from. However, Parnassus's story ends on a cliffhanger as he falls into slumber. The next day, Tony suggests renovating the stage with all of their savings to give the theater a new look. Meanwhile, Valentina stops Anton from quitting the theater because she needs him. That night, the troupe undergoes an extreme makeover. The mobile theater receives a new look. Tony becomes the new Barker, and they are about to perform at a mall. Tony induces wealthy women, offering them a rare opportunity to undergo purification under Parnassus' wondrous imagination. Because of Tony's persuasive testimony, the audiences race to the stage to experience the power. However, they can only accommodate one at a time. Just then, a posh elder shouts at them and points at Percy, who she assumes is a black child suffering from child labor. Tony then invites the posh elder on stage and delivers her to the Imaginarium. Tony follows her inside and sees her imagination produce a pastel fashion dimension. He also receives a new face based on her personal interests. They eventually dance, but Tony keeps seeing Valentina floating elegantly in the air. Next, the posh elder needs to choose a path between Nick's motel and Parnassus's gondola. The posh elder initially picks the motel, but Tony persuades her to choose the gondola instead. Fortunately, the posh elder listens to him and picks Parnassus's path in the end, marking her as Parnassus's first soul win. Tony returns to the stage with his real face. Next, the posh elder reappears and then donates all of her expensive belongings to the donation box to give thanks for the purification. Soon, 3 more women enter the mirror, and each later reappears with visible happiness. From afar, Nick watches Parnassus win 4 souls, while he still has none. Parnassus still needs 1 more soul, but the consecutive victories put their plan to halt. Just then, 4 Russian thugs arrive at the mall to hunt Tony down because of his unpaid debt to their syndicate. Since Tony wasn't able to pay them the debt, the syndicate resorted to hanging him under the bridge 3 days ago. However, they likely found Tony missing beneath the bridge, and now they're searching for him. Meanwhile, Tony pushes away the last person Parnassus needs to win just to escape from the Russian thugs. The thugs follow him and see him climbing a ladder leading to the clouds. However, Tony drops from the ladder, allowing the thugs to capture him. They initially think they got the wrong person because of his different face, but when they wipe off his forehead, the red mark they stamped on him appears. When the thugs prepare to hang him, Tony swallows the pipe, so he can still breathe while dangling in the air. Just then, Anton arrives to save Tony, but the thugs only knock him down too. They're about to hang Tony, but it's time to choose the path between Parnassus and Nick's route, completely ignoring Tony's grave situation. Sad to say, the 4 thugs have gone down Nick's path, making him on par with Parnassus. Afterward, the troupe ends the show and travels to a quiet place to settle down for the meantime. However, there's only an hour left until the bet is over, and Parnassus uses the chance to reveal the truth to Valentina. Parnassus's love story with the woman included a catch. All of Parnassus's future children will become Nick's property when they reach 16. Valentina thinks Parnassus is only joking, but he confirms it's true. Valentina then gets incredibly mad at him for treating her like a token used for gambling and walks out to release all of her overwhelming emotions. Sadly, Parnassus drives Percy away out of frustration because everything is in shambles. Percy obeys his wish and leaves them for good. Meanwhile, Tony wants to enter the mirror again to continue his dream, so he helps Parnassus to relax so he can focus his power to open the Imaginarium. The portal soon opens, and Tony drags Valentina with him, but Anton stops them after finally discovering Tony's true identity. He stole organs from orphans and sold them to rich countries. Anton reveals Tony is a bad man, but Tony denies all of them and proceeds to enter the mirror with Valentina. This time, Tony wears the face that Valentina admires in the family magazine. Since Valentina is 16 now, she shares an erotic moment with Tony during their gondola ride. However, their moment abruptly ends when an orphan appears on the shore. Valentina's dream shifts to Tony's dream, revealing he's a prominent philanthropist affiliated with influential leaders and giving motivational speeches in his charity house. While Tony enjoys his dream, Anton shows up as a kid to convince a confused Valentina that Tony is a fraud. However, Tony catches Anton and inadvertently beats him up in front of the people. Soon, Tony's imagination shatters while the people transform into mobs aiming to kill him for his sins. Meanwhile, Valentina and Anton escape from the Imaginarium, but Anton falls and barely hangs on the edge. Valentina tries to save Anton, but he untimely returns to his adult size, making him heavier for Valentina to carry. Anton grabs the chance to confess his love for Valentina before he lets go and falls into oblivion. Tony suddenly grabs Valentina by the hair and hurts her for ruining his dream. During this moment, Tony discloses his true nature: egocentric, greedy, and a fraud. However, he soon abandons Valentina to escape from the tailing mob. Sadly, Valentina still resents her father's gambling addiction, and so she eagerly chooses Nick's path as revenge for Parnassus. Therefore, Parnassus loses the bet and Valentina altogether. However, Nick feels unconvinced by the predictable results, so he offers Parnassus another bet that involves killing Tony in exchange for his daughter's soul. Parnassus then accepts the bet and waits for Tony to arrive on the mountaintop, which is the path of self-fulfillment. Tony eventually reaches the mountaintop and sees Parnassus dangling in the air. He then saves Parnassus so he can take his place when the mob arrives to kill him. However, Parnassus knows Tony cheats with the pipe, so he plays a little game with him. He stops the time and lets Tony pick between the two identical pipes, but the other one is fake. While Tony deliberates which to choose, Parnassus hopes for Tony to pick the wrong one. When Tony finally chooses a pipe, Parnassus continues the flow of time again. Tony then swallows the pipe and allows the mob to hang him. However, right before the mob drops Tony dead, Parnassus spits out the real pipe, meaning Tony chose the fake one. Tony dies, and Parnassus wins the bet. Nick then releases Valentina's soul, but keeps her location a secret, leaving Parnassus brokenhearted and alone while searching for his daughter in the Imaginarium. The movie ends with Parnassus coming back to London as a tramp. Coincidentally, Valentina walks past to drop a coin on him and continues on the way to a restaurant. Parnassus follows her and sees Valentina meeting Anton and a child. Parnassus reckons Valentina's finally living her ultimate dream with Anton. Just then, Percy sneaks behind and tells him to leave them because they're doing great without him. Parnassus painfully accepts the truth and joins Percy in their new chapter, performing a toy theater in front of the children. While they work, Nick returns to bet with Parnassus again, but Percy hollers at Parnassus to go back to work. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.